Legend of the Forgotten Land, the Tavanka people. In this vast, boundless steppe, there lived a brave and fearless people. Born of heroes, they bowed to none and lived as a free nation. They were the Tavanka people. A sacred tribe that breathed peace, prayed to the eternal sky, and lived in harmony with nature. They had dominance over nearby tribes, but never arrogance. They were wise, calm, and honored their traditions. Their population grew, steppe medicine advanced, and generations were raised to value every living being. Here, mornings were born in peace, the sound of hooves blended with children's laughter. But that peace did not last long. Not from the sky, but from the west came a shadow. The white men came. At first, they waved and smiled in friendship. Strange goods, unknown words, objects made of iron, and fire-shooting weapons. The Tavanka opened their hearts, because they never struck first. But behind every friendly smile, a hidden horror waited. The white men asked for land. Just a small piece, they said. Then more and more. The Tavanka lands kept shrinking. But the greed of the strangers never stopped. During this time, a neighboring tribe, the Siksavika, made an alliance with the white men and launched a sudden attack on Tavanka village. The village burned. Children's cries rose to the sky, blending with the mourning of mothers. That night, a little girl, Moonlight, went missing. A young warrior, Stoneheart, stood silent in his mother's tears. And in that silence lay a spear of frozen fury. He never cried, because even hope had died in tears. The tribe's chief, Black Elk, led his people to the mountains. There he declared, "We did not fight, but we retreated. Now we stop." He sent a message to the invaders, "The land is not ours. We belong to the land, and so we do not sell it." But the enemy didn't listen. The war for the land began. The Tavanka were few, but their spirits stood taller than mountains. In each battle, a fate was lost. Mothers lost sons. Children lost fathers. But never once did they kneel. The final battle was a fight between blood and honor. Stoneheart raised his spear to the sky, "Even if we don't survive, may our children feel our spirit." That day, the steppe turned red. The color of blood and the sun became one. That day, the sun fell. And with it, the Tavanka fell too. Silence followed the battle. But it was not peace, it was the quiet left behind by ruin. Stoneheart became one with the land. Only the voice of Black Elk remained, "We are no more. But when the wind blows, speak with us. When the rain falls, remember us. When the sun sets red, know, this is the shadow of the fallen sun." Since then, the sky sometimes breathes heavily. The sun sometimes sets in crimson. Because this land belongs to the forgotten but ever-living spirit of the Tavanka people. Reborn from ashes. After the massacre, silence fell over the land of Tavanka. But it was not death. It was vengeance, resting. Around 100 warriors survived from the Tavanka tribe. They were the strongest. Soldiers who had not fled the battlefield, yet never bent the knee. Their leader, the student of Stoneheart, a young warrior named Flame Eyes, one who carried both fury and wisdom. Silent on the outside, but with a storm inside his heart. They hid in the mountains, raiding colonial outposts under the cover of night. They looted weapons, food, and ammunition, and learned to strike their enemies with the enemy's own tools. At that time, the traitorous Siksavika tribe was preparing for another attack. But this time, Tavanka did not stay silent. 100 warriors led by Flame Eyes faced them without fear. The battle took place below the mountains, in the ancient oak forest. Flame Eyes met the Siksavika chief face to face, once a blood relative of Tavanka, but who had sold his people for gold and power. Swords clashed. The earth trembled. In the end, Flame Eyes brought the chief to his knees. "You sold our blood," he said. But we never sold our spirit. And he ended the chief's life. The Siksavika tribe surrendered without another fight. Having lost their leader, they pledged loyalty to Flame Eyes and joined Tavanka's cause. That day marked the rebirth of Tavanka. Once only 100 warriors on the run, now the hope of thousands. Together, they pushed the colonizers westward. With each fallen fort, Tavanka's spirit rose higher. Each victory was the voice of a lost child, the hope of a crying mother, the cleansing of blood-soaked land. But Flame Eyes would be remembered, not only for war, but for peace. He led his people back to their land, built new villages, revived a life in harmony with nature. Tavanka was born again. But they were no longer the same. They had become a nation, forged by storm, hardened through blood and tears, and reborn as an eternal spirit that would never fade. The rising blue smoke. After the chief of the Siksavika was killed, the warriors who remained behind lowered their swords and bowed to Alaū Köz, because they chose the path of honor, not betrayal. Tavanka began to grow strong again. But Alaū Köz and his companions knew this was only a temporary peace. For the blue-eyed enemy was still walking the earth, still burning peaceful villages, slaughtering bison herds, soaking the land in blood. That is why Alaū Köz sent messengers to the 5 great surrounding tribes. He said, "They attack us separately and aim to destroy us separately. But if we are united, they will fear us. Come, let us fight not only for land, but for spirit." These words, like lightning rising to the sky, spread across the plains. Messengers galloped across the land. One went to the mountains, another along the river, another into the thick forest. To each tribe, Alaū Köz sent a hand-carved war symbol, a stone with the Tavanka spear blazing in flames. In those days, warrior messengers from the mountains returned one by one. The chief's replies were heavy, but clear. Our lands are stolen. The bison are gone. Our children are starving. We can no longer welcome spring. We stand with you. At that moment, another grim message reached Alaū Köz. The yellow-eyed, golden-haired colonizers were building a new railroad, now aiming for the sacred Seven Springs Valley, hidden deep in the mountains. This land, to Tavanka, was not just land, but a place where the spirits of all ancestors resided. Alaū Köz said nothing. He sat in deep thought beside the night fire, a warrior with no beard, but with eyes full of endless youth and endless responsibility, was preparing for tomorrow. That night, the sky filled with dark clouds. Then, standing by the fire, Alaū Köz raised his sword and said, "They come with iron. We go with spirit. They shoot with guns. We respond with our hearts. From today on, every blade of grass, every stone, shall be our spear, shall be our shield." That very night, the united Tavanka force, together with the tribes of Siksavika, Black Falcon, Dawn Light, White Stone, Mountain Wind, and Owl Mountain, formed the Great Resistance Alliance, now more than 5,000 strong. The next day was the beginning of a new history, the breath of the Great Step. Alaū Köz stood silently on horseback. The wind blew against his face. No tears came to his eyes, because in his heart was not the old wound, but a burning longing mixed with vengeance. He remembered again today his father with a broken leg, one arm torn off, mocked by white men, and before sunrise gave his last breath lying face down, and his sister, bound hand and foot. The day he found her lifeless body, something in Alaū Köz's gaze extinguished. and in its place, fire ignited. That fire today is sweeping across the entire great steppe. Before the sun rose, a thunder rumbled over the plains. 5,000 warriors from 5 different tribes, all awakened by heart, all came for one purpose. In all their eyes burned the vengeance of Alaū Köz. Spears gleamed in the sunlight. Bows were drawn tight. Quivers full. Hearts not empty. Alaū Köz raised his hand to the sky. We do not fight for today. We fight for the tomorrow of 7 generations, he said. The enemy base appeared in the distance. Rows of tents. Cannons, rifles. Soldiers in iron armor. Alaū Köz looked to his people. They are colonizers. We are not just the owners of this land. We are the land itself, he said. The battle began. Arrows rained down first. Then spears flew. The sound shook heaven and earth. The Europeans were stunned at first. They had not expected such resistance. They fired with guns. But the natives did not retreat, because in their hands was the ancient spirit, the ancient voice, the ancient sacredness. Alaū Köz destroyed the cannon first. Then he set fire to the weapons warehouse, crushing everything in his path. He brought down the European commander's tent. At that moment, throwing a spear, he said, "This is for my sister." Then firing a gun, "This is for my father." And finally, looking to the sky, "This is for the land," he shouted. By evening, only smoke remained from the base. The enemy fled. The survivors surrendered. Alaū Köz had won. He sat silently on his steed. The sun was about to set. On the horizon, a blood-red glow. The land was no longer silent. The land was breathing. Alaū Köz whispered softly, "Bow to the land. Today it has returned to its own." That night, the wind blew gently. But now, it was not a fallen sun. It was a reborn sun. Blood and a promise. There was no peace at the European base. The few soldiers who escaped capture could not rest easy. They kept seeing, again and again, a phantom riding a white horse, charging under a blood-red sun, with a spear raised to the sky. "I didn't expect such resistance from these savages," said the commander, Gustav Moyen, a harsh officer from Northern Europe, a man who believed in fire and steel. That warrior on the white horse, who charged at our cannons. Who is he? Where was he trained? He united not 1, but 5 tribes. Those around him remained silent, because in their hearts was fear. Even the grass and wind of this land seemed to whisper the name of Alaū Köz. They won't yield to us. There's only one option left. We capture their leader. He must kneel or die. Gustav Moyen sent messengers in all directions to the chiefs of the 5 tribes. He offered silver and gold, weapons and food, but made only one demand: hand over Alaū Köz to us. In return, you will get land and peace. At that very moment, in the great plains of the steppe, Alaū Köz was brewing herbs for the wounded. Captured European soldiers were resting in tents, receiving treatment. Not a single one was harmed. Even their wounds were bandaged with sacred plants. Alaū Köz said, "We answered the enemy with vengeance. Now let us answer with humanity, because we are better than them." One day passed, then another, and then the 5 tribal chiefs gathered in secret. To betray Alaū Köz would have been the easiest way to survive. But one of them, the elder chief Kumbui, stood tall. "If we hand over Alaū Köz, we won't just give up a leader. We'll trample our own honor. We may live on, but our children will be dead inside." After those words, none dared to object. The 5 tribes reached one decision: let the war begin again. But this time not just for revenge, but for the future. They told Alaū Köz everything. He listened in silence. Then mounted his white horse and said, "At sunset, we ride. The shadows are short in the day. But in the night, warriors ride unseen." While Gustav Moyen sat in false peace, the land once again spoke. But this time, the wind did not just whisper. The wind carried the thunder of whose? The enemy's face. The second time, the army of the 5 tribes rose like the great steppe itself. Swift as the wind, they descended upon the European base with fire and bullets. This time they came, not to beg for peace, but to demand truth. Inside the base, chaos reigned. Cannons fell silent. Shields burned. But most importantly, into Alaū Köz's hands fell the last enemy, Gustav Moyen. He was one of the first to set foot on the land of Tavanka. From that moment, he tied the knot of every sorrow. The devil himself, Alaū Köz, stopped the moment he saw him. His eyes fire, his heart stone. But inside, the wound still lived. "I know you," he said. "When you first came, you smiled. Then you humiliated my father. You killed him before my eyes. His arm and leg broken. You crushed my sister's hope, her dignity." Moyen said nothing. He just looked down and smirked. Not a trace of regret. Alaū Köz gripped his dagger tightly. But then, he heard the voice of his people again. The words of Kara Bui. "Victory is not in killing your enemy. Victory is in showing him you are human." Alaū Köz released his enemy from his grasp. "Board your ship and return to your land," he said. Moyen, with that same deceitful grin. "Yes, yes. You're magnificent. The people of the steppe are so forgiving," he said. But beneath his words was venom and mockery. And Alaū Köz knew it all. But he didn't show himself. He showed the dignity of his people, his nation. "Don't think I spared you. You didn't die by my hand. You died by your own disgrace. You may walk away from this land alive, but your soul will remain here, marked with shame." Alaū Köz turned away. The enemy was left behind. But ahead, a new storm was rising. Because men like Moyen never keep their word. And next time, he might return, not with revenge, but with total war. The spirit that retreated to the mountain. One day, dark clouds once again covered the steppe. The peace of victory didn't last long. For the enemy honored no promise. And betrayal was bitterer than poison. Alaū Köz had foreseen that this war would return. That's why his warriors, even when off their horses, never let go of their weapons. He was a warrior with fire in his eyes, whose gaze shot like a spear. At that moment, Moyen, the cunning mind born of Europe's fire and fury, burning with rage and revenge, sent messengers to each of the 5 tribes. "Alaū Köz will destroy your future. He wants to be the ruler above you all. Side with me and your people will survive." With these false promises, 3 tribes were tempted. They believed the lies and betrayed their own brother, their own kin. And at that moment, the Europeans launched their attack. But this time, not the entire steppe stood against them. Only one tribe, Alaū Köz, sensed the betrayal. Even though his warriors numbered over 500, the enemy came in thousands. He grieved, not for his foes, but for his brothers who had turned. "I can defeat them, but they have already been defeated by their own shame." Alaū Köz, to prevent bloodshed and protect his people, withdrew into the mountains. There, a new plan, a new spirit, a new vow was forged. For in the mountains, not only earth and sky reigned, but also the sacred soul of the homeland. There, Alaū Köz gathered his people and said, "We are not defeated. We have gained time. Those who betrayed us did not defeat us. They defeated themselves. But the truth does not always flow downhill. One day it rises. And that day will come when the hearts of the 5 tribes will beat as one again." That night, at the mountain's base, a fire was lit. Beside them, not weapons, but pure belief stood. Trial of the traitors. Flame of national honor. Night. The sky cloaked in dark clouds. In the arms of the mountain, Alaū Köz and his small force. Beside him, his trusted companions, and a storm of silent thoughts. Scouts were sent to the mountain's base. They soon returned. No signs of movement. No white men. "The base looks abandoned," said one. Alaū Köz nodded quietly. But he didn't believe it. The enemy was cunning. Silence could be a trap. At that moment, he secretly sent his warriors into the 3 traitorous tribes. Not to the chiefs, but to the brave soldiers who lived in the shadows of those leaders. The ones who hated betrayal. He sent a message. "You know what the white men are. One day a promise, the next, death. Those who remain tribes were slaughtered. It is not too late for you. Your leaders betrayed us, but what about you? If you are men of honor, bring your chiefs to me. I'll be waiting by the old river around the mountain." The message spread like fire, and it reached the hearts of true warriors. Within the tribes, the chiefs were captured at night, bound in the darkness. They were brought before Alaū Köz. In the moonlight, at the foot of the mountain, 3 chiefs, living symbols of betrayal, knelt before Alaū Köz. He stared at them in long silence. His eyes burned with fire. His heart trembled with grief and rage. "What did you lack?" he asked. "We fought for land, for our people, for spirit. And you sold your honor." One chief lowered his head. "We only wanted to save our people." Alaū Köz cut him off. "Survival is the coward's word. Freedom is the warrior's choice." He did not kill them, but he brought them before their people and made them confess the truth. "Your chiefs were traitors. Now your fate is in your hands." The crowd fell silent. In that silence there was cold regret and hope. But Alaū Köz's justice and courage awakened thousands of hearts. New warriors began to gather beneath his banner. Resilient mothers, young men who had walked through blood, bowed and declared, "He is a leader. He is the spirit. He is the honor of the nation." Alaū Köz's force grew stronger again. The number of warriors surpassed 2,000. They were ready to avenge their people and give their lives for land and nation. By the fateful river, this time Moyen did not come alone. He brought reinforcements from Europe. With 7,000 soldiers, cannons, rifles, and warriors from previously conquered tribes, he reached the banks of the Stone Spring River. He was confident. 3 tribes are with me. Alaū Köz is alone. The savage's time is over, he declared. But he was wrong. Alaū Köz had already hidden hundreds of warriors in the mountain ravines, lying in wait by the river. Before Moyen's army could form ranks, they came under a storm of fire. The plains echoed with a rain of arrows and bullets. From the flanks, archers struck, and from the front, muskets thundered. Moyen's army, caught off guard, fell into panic and retreated chaotically. "This is impossible. Where did these warriors come from?" Moyen tried to retreat, but it was too late. Alaū Köz charged with his white steed, piercing through one after another, until he reached Moyen himself. Unable to resist, Morian dropped to his knees. Do you remember how you killed my father? Do you remember where you disgraced my sister? You are not just an enemy. You are a creature void of humanity, said Alaū Köz. His warriors stood silent beside him. In that moment, Alaū Köz raised his spear high, and with all his strength, drove it into Morian's heart. This is not for vengeance, but for justice, he said. Morian died, and his thousands of troops were either captured or killed. The captured Europeans were shown no mercy this time. For the massacres they committed, Alaū Köz spared none of them. Seized cannons, food supplies and weapons were all sent back to the village. But this victory did not come without sacrifice. Alaū Köz was gravely wounded in the shoulder. Losing blood, swaying on his horse, he still did not let the flag of victory fall. He became the symbol of loyalty, of bravery, and of his nation. Alaū Köz and Takani. The renowned warrior Alaū Köz was only 22. But with his courage, he became a shield for his people, and a fire upon his enemies. One day, he visited the Alaū tribe at the foot of the western ridge. And there, for the first time, he saw her. She was Takani. Her eyebrows were finely arched, her eyes deep and clear. From her doe-like gaze, light poured. Moon-faced, apple-cheeked. When she spoke, her voice was like the whisper of a morning breeze. Looking at her felt like seeing the beauty of the whole steppe. At first sight, Alaū Köz could not stop the pounding of his heart. And from that moment, he couldn't take his eyes off Takani. And what about Takani? She had known Alaū Köz from long ago. From legends among the people. From stories of him charging into battle on horseback. In times of war, her heart had already chosen the warrior who was the hope of the nation. They understood each other without words. At the foot of the mountain, by the lake, at gatherings under the moon, their eyes often met, sharing secrets in silence. The next spring, they promised to marry and build a home together. Takani sisters, with faces like the moon and sun, couldn't contain their joy. Her mother began wedding preparations. The Alaū tribe was filled with happiness. But that happiness, which seemed eternal, was turned to ashes in a moment. By one wicked soul. By a single gunshot. The end of betrayal. When the Europeans realized they could not defeat Alaū Köz, they turned from open war to war of cunning. Morian's death was not the end for them, only the beginning of revenge. They searched among other tribes for people who could betray Alaū Köz. They told them, if you kill Alaū Köz, your children, parents will be spared. They agreed, because they wanted to save their families. They were afraid, and stained their hands with blood. One day, Alaū Köz had promised to meet Takani by the lake. Takani arrived early. A gentle wind stirred along the shore. It was quiet. The scent of spring mud filled the air. Alaū Köz galloped from afar, jumped off his horse, ran toward Takani, reached to embrace her, and at that moment, a shot tore through the sky. A bullet, fired from the shadows, pierced Alaū Köz's shoulder. But he did not fall. Another shot, this time through the heart. Alaū Köz dropped to his knees, reached out, held Takani's white braid. Their eyes met one last time. Takani's tear-filled gaze conveyed everything without a word. Alaū Köz smiled softly. I am happy, he said, because the last thing I see is your face. And in that moment, the whole steppe fell silent. A spring stained in red blood. An orphan steppe. A soul-deep wound in Takani. And though many years passed, Alaū Köz's courage remained in hearts. As fire. As legend. Another fate has ended. Another legend turned into silent tears. the last echo of the steppe returning with bitter regret piercing the heart. Takani the beautiful and Alaū Köz, the final breath of love. According to the legend of the steppe, Takani the beautiful could not live without Alaū Köz. With a heart broken by sorrow, she came every day to the grave of her beloved, crying, sitting in silence. And one day, right there, she quietly closed her eyes forever. On that night, bathed in moonlight, from the lake's shore, within a mist rising like a white cloud, a shadowy figure appeared on the lake, resembling Alaū Köz. They say Takani's soul followed him into the mist. The traitors and the night of grief. Those who shot Alaū Köz in the back. Yes, they were from another tribe. Hands soaked in blood, hearts frozen in guilt. They realized too late that they carried not salvation, but a curse. And that curse did not pass to their descendants, but returned to themselves. All of them, women, children, elders alike, were wiped from the earth by the Europeans. The enemies did not keep their promise. Not only did they kill the hostages, but the entire tribe was destroyed in a single night. Even the earth seemed unwilling to accept their bones, as by morning the blood-soaked soil turned ashen and dim. The cry of the orphaned steppe, and the 500 warriors beside Alaū Köz. Yes, they were his most loyal, unshakable companions. But an army without a leader is like a body without a head. At midnight, under the cover of dark shadows, the Europeans came and slaughtered the resting warriors. To the last man, young warriors, friends who stayed loyal to the very dust, sworn brothers who once laughed through life, fell in pools of blood. Their final words were, Alaū Köz, forgive us. Since that time, no one camps by the lake. When night falls, they say two shadows, one man, one woman, walk hand in hand along the shore. When the wind blows across the steppe, it whispers, Takani. Alaū Köz and Takani. This is not just love. This is a grand fate that makes the heart weep. Now, people sit by the lake, and as a single tear wells up in their eyes, they quietly whisper, if only it had all been different.